Wait. Are you serious? Are you serious, folks? Welcome to this special broadcast here live. I will be live again, of course, at 12 noon Eastern, but the summit in Helsinki, Finland, President Trump and President Vladimir Putin. We're getting the first reports coming out of Helsinki right now to find out just exactly what happened between these two world leaders, and it's quite extraordinary what took place. First of all, before I get any further with this, let me break in right now and remind you, for 10 days straight, I promised I would give a quick shout out for Noble Gold Investments. That's Noble Gold Investments. If your IRA or your 401k, or you just got your retirement, or you just got an insurance settlement, or maybe your inheritance or something, you don't know what to do, Pastor Begley is telling you, go see a Christian company, family owned, noblegoldinvestments.com. Check it out. They'll help you out. Here's the situation developing right now from Helsinki, Finland. President Trump and President Vladimir Putin have just met, and we're getting information coming. Donald Trump described the historic talks with Vladimir Putin today as a very good start as the pair look to rebuild ties between the United States and Russia. The United States president said he hoped for an extraordinary relationship with Moscow before leaning across to shake hands with the Russian leader as the pair sat side by side ahead of their summit at the Finnish presidential palace in Helsinki, Finland. In the opening remarks, Trump praised Russia's hosting of the World Cup, but admitted the two countries have not been getting along for the past 2 years. A somber-looking Putin, who struck a casual pose during Trump's remarks and slouched in his chair with his legs wide and his eyes low, he made a comment. He said, "The time has come to talk in substantive ways." Now, Trump, who was seen shooting a wink at his counterpart at one point, looked determined at the Russian president as the pair shook hands, while Putin seemed to be clinging to his chair for support. After Trump concluded his remarks, the American reporters shouted several questions about whether he would bring up the election meddling. What? During this discussion with Putin, Trump did not respond, while Putin appeared to smirk. I'm sure he didn't appreciate it. After more than 2 hours of a one-on-one discussion with only translators present, President Donald Trump called the meeting a good start, a very good start for everybody. And so the two, they met. It was quite a, again, everyone wants to know, what does this mean? What came out of this? What was discussed? How far did they go? The two leaders were seated together in a room that was draped, of course, with the American and Russian flags at the Finnish presidential palace, separated by just a little small table. The meeting started 45 minutes late, following Putin's delayed arrival to Finland. Trump leaned forward in his chair, his hands tented in front of him, frequently glancing over at the Russian counterpart. Did they talk about nuclear war? Did they talk about Syria? You know they did. Did they talk about the fact that Russia has cozied up with the Iranians and the Iranians are setting in Syria right next door to Israel? Did they discuss this Israel's security? Because you guys know Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he did fly into Moscow and he met with Putin on Wednesday. And he said to Putin, look, we're not trying to take President Assad out of power, but the Iranians have got to go. And folks, last night, overnight, just before these two presidential superpowers met, Israel flew deep into the heart of Syria near Aleppo and bombed a military base that had Iranian soldiers in it. We still have unconfirmed reports that some of the Iranian soldiers were killed. maybe even some Syrian soldiers. Israel is not confirming or denying this report. Neither is the Pentagon, but there's no question that an attack by Israel on the Iranians deep within Syria happened last night. So do you think, I have no doubt in my mind, Trump came into this meeting to discuss Israeli security and the situation in Syria, and also, no doubt about it, Trump and they had to be talking about the European Union. They had to be talking about the fact that the people, the nations in the EU, not real happy right now. They are fearful, actually, of Russia. And then again, the United States has kicked out 60 Russian diplomats. Trump did about 6 months ago. And we just had, we have Russian sanctions on Russia right now. And oh, by the way, Rod Rosenstein, the assistant deputy attorney general, just indicted 12 Russians on U.S. election meddling, but no indictments came on any Americans. And oh, by the way, there was this Russian collusion, confusion, had nothing to do with the Trump campaign. This Russian involvement was with the Democratic Party. Nobody in America has been arrested, but 12 Russians have been indicted, but they'll never be arrested. They live in Russia, and they're never going to be extradited to America. So behind the shady glasses of Vladimir Putin is an ex-KGB agent. And trust me, a heavy, strong negotiator. This is the one guy that Trump knows that the only way to negotiate with him will have to be from a position of great strength, which I believe Trump has in his back pocket. The U.S. military, the U.S. economy, the U.S. connections. It is tough for Putin to completely stand up against them. The only deterrent Putin has is, of course, those thousands of nuclear weapons. And that's not what either world leader wants to do. Now, let's also talk about this. Putin is against the New World Order. There's no question about it. I mean, and Trump's against the New World Order. So, on one hand, it's good to see these two leaders meeting because they both know that there's a global elitist agenda by the New World Order, that the Illuminati is trying to take over the world with globalism. Putin's against globalism. Trump's against globalism. But at the same time, they have to watch each other from, the old saying is, you hold your friends close and your enemies closer. President Trump, Vladimir Putin, meeting today. Trump leaned, of course, over that chair and shook hands with President Vladimir Putin, and frequently glancing over at his counterpart, Putin. Also, in an opening remarks, Trump said, most importantly, we have a lot of good things to talk about. We have discussions on everything from trade to the military, to missiles, to nuclear bombs, to China. We'll be talking a little bit about China, our mutual friend, President Xi Jinping. And I think we have great opportunities together as two countries that, frankly, we have not been getting along very well for the last number of years. He changed it from 2 to number of years. I've been here not too long, but it's getting close to 2 years. But I think we will end up having an extraordinary relationship. I've been saying, and I'm sure you've heard over the years, that getting along with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing. I really think the world wants to see us get along. We are the two great nuclear powers. We have 90% of the nuclear weapons in the world. And that's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. I think we can hopefully do something about that because it is not a positive force. It's a negative force. So we'll be talking about that among other things in today's meeting. And so Putin, Trump concluded his remarks by saying that he was looking forward to their private talks. We all have a lot of questions, and hopefully we will come up with the answers. And most importantly, it is great to be with you. But at least in his public remarks on the outset, he mentioned none of the issues that have lately brought the U.S.-Russian relationship to its lowest point. since the Cold War. Moscow's annexation of the territory of Ukraine, taking over Crimea, support for Syria's Bashar al-Assad, as well as Western accusations that a spy was poisoned in England, and also meddling in the U.S. elections. Putin, for his part, said he and Trump have maintained regular contact by phone and meeting at international events, but the time has come to have a thorough discussion on various international problems and sensitive issues. He added, speaking through a translator, there are quite a few of them for us to pay attention to. Monday's meeting, closely watched on both sides of the Atlantic, coming days after the U.S. Justice Department indicted those 12 Russian military intelligence officers for their role in hacking the Democratic entities during the 2016 presidential campaign. They hacked Hillary Clinton's emails. Of course, she had them floating around on her own private server. And even Anthony Weiner had how many of them on his laptop? What? And then you got Uma Abedin running around and they're sending faxes. You got the guy in Pakistan who was working for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. You got all kinds of people and loosey-goosey. And no wonder, Putin was able to get his hands on this information. It comes hours after Trump blamed the United States and not Russia election meddling or its taking over of Crimea. But the drama was playing out against the backdrop of Western alliances and a new peak in the Russian investigation. Even Trump was talking about how this was a rigged witch hunt. Now, there's a whole lot more to this information. I'm going to share that during our live broadcast that starts at 12 noon Eastern. Plus, I'll get you up to speed on Hawaii, what's happening in France, the chaos, and Israel attacking of Iranian troops in Syria, and a whole lot more, a ton of stuff as we approach the blood moon, the longest blood moon of the century. Is it peace or is it war? We'll be back with more. Give your life to Jesus Christ. We're living in the last days. Are you serious?